I'm sorry. So
The question of programmatic access and what is it is so huge that we probably need to talk a little bit more about some details to bring it down to a manageable discussion topic for us.
no, I have no problem with that, Alicia. I just wanted to record it so that we'd have it all on hand and everything else. So it's okay to record. So let me go ahead and tell you what's going on, and then maybe we can go from there.
Okay.
Okay, let me get started by saying that I'm a disabled person on my Social Security, and my disability is what's known as an adjustment disorder.
Okay.
Okay, basically what that means to me, and the way it was described to me by my doctor, is that I cannot adjust to disorder, or I'm a very well-adjusted individual in a very mal-adjusted society.
Gotcha.
I'm basically like the Vietnam vet who went to war based on all the lies and then came back having seen the truth.
Okay.
All right, so now let's back up here.
Okay.
I have been looking for my health care for years. I have gone to the Department of Public Health. I live in San Francisco, and I've been constantly denied my public health care, and every time I went in for access and accommodation under programmatic access, I was escorted out by the sheriff
Okay.
because the sheriff has a $12 million MOU, Memo of Understanding, with the Department of Public Health to provide security. Security is basically like a rent-a-cop. Hey, if the clerk doesn't like you, feels a little bit uncomfortable, whatnot, they can call security, have you taken out. This is basically patient dumping. When I call for San Francisco Civil Standby to come by and to enforce my rights under ADA for access and accommodation and programmatic access, the Department of Emergency Management calls the sheriff, and the sheriff lies to them and says, oh, well, he's been taken care of. He's trespassing. He has to leave.
Okay.
So you can see the catch-22.
Okay.
Now, my programmatic access, let me explain what's going on with that and the reason I require programmatic access. In 2001, when my lover died, I went to San Francisco General seeking emergency services, and my doctor at the time was Mitchell Katz, Director of Public Health here in San Francisco. I was denied emergency services. I was arrested and everything else, and then I turned around and sued the city because it was denial of emergency services. In 2003, when my case got to court, my doctor had already abandoned me, telling me that I wasn't an emergency. I'd already gone to Medicare, which told me I was wrong. I went to licensing and certification, which told me I was wrong. Everybody told me I was wrong. In the court case, C023485PJH, Phyllis J. Hamilton, my case was dismissed because the other side got up and testified. Their expert witness said that I had received a medical screening examination, which is required by law so that they're not patient dumping. The Impala law is about patient dumping. In 2003, like I said, they had my case dismissed. In 2007, they signed a settlement agreement with the Office of Inspector General admitting fault and guilt for having broken Impala law, which is the first reason I took them to court in the first place.
Okay.
Now, let's not forget, I have an adjustment disorder. I cannot adjust to disorder. Since 2007, I've been trying to get my medical care and go back and have them be accountable. Ask me if any agency, whether it was, Medicare or any other agency, has the Department of Public Health, the sheriff, anybody has explained to me not only the illegal arrest, but lying in federal court to have my case dismissed, only to sign a confession 4 years later through the Office of Inspector General. I have constantly sought my health care, and, between 2007 and 2012, that period, I have all the paperwork of seeking my health care going back and being consistently denied. So in 2012, I said to myself, well, Grant, you have an adjustment disorder. Part of programmatic access is that you can get into the program. So I went back with my video camera to start, recording, videotaping what I was receiving from the Department of Public Health and everything else. I went back in 2012 with a friend to the Department of Public Health at 101 Grove, and they came down with a bogus, false restraining order against me. A criminally fraudulent document saying that there was a restraining order against me. Naturally, I went to the sheriff, who told me it wasn't his jurisdiction to make sure whether or not the restraining orders were valid.
this is all in San Francisco, sir?
Correct.
Okay.
At that point, I went to the DA to press charges, and I was told by the DA on video that he didn't care about my legal rights. I went to the police department and said, well, who enforces medical law? My medical rights are being violated. You know, I'm an ADA person. I have access and accommodation. And by the way, I have programmatic access thrown in on top of all of this because, you know, here I've told the truth. Here's where they've screwed me. Here's where I'm a well-adjusted individual. Here's where the society is maladjusted by never explaining, coming clean, being accountable. And they just continue to do it because nobody will arrest them when they break the law.
Okay.
So, you know, on 8/28/2015, I went in with my video camera to continue to seek my health care at the Department of Public Health to set up an appointment because, you know, I dropped my Medicare Part B back in 2005 because Medicare told me I was wrong when I went back with the signed confession and went all the way to Washington, D.C. to their quality management because I want to fix it for everybody. They not only told me I was wrong with the signed confession, but that I still wasn't an emergency.
Okay.
So I dropped Part B because, you know, my attitude is Medicare owes me the beneficiary responsibility, and supposedly Medicare is the one that regulates all these institutions.
Right. Okay.
Well, guess what I got from Medicare? Nada. So, in 2012, like I said, I went back to the Department of Public Health, started videotaping 08/28/15. Just this last year, when I went to seek my health care again with my video camera, I was arrested seeking my health care, and they shoved a policy in front of me telling me that I could not video record because of HIPAA.
Okay.
I had HIPAA law on me. I pulled it out and showed it to the officer, and I said, well, excuse me, this thing quotes HIPAA, and this isn't anywhere to be found in HIPAA. Will you please show it to me? I was immediately arrested when I challenged the officer, who I thought, you know, excuse me, I'm going to the Department of Public Health. You know, the sheriff is security. Certainly he's there to look out for, you know, to serve and protect me.
What services are you trying to
Medical
obtain?
care.
What's that? Medical care?
Correct. I haven't had any. Because every time I turn around and go in, they tell me that I'm not allowed to videotape per their policy. And when I ask them not only to cite the laws where I'm not allowed to videotape, I also inform them of my programmatic access, which, you know, is totally valid. They seem to ignore that. Are you following this?
I'm trying to. And I'm trying to think about what it is that I can do to help you. See, I work for San Mateo County.
Yes, and you're the county, you're the county ADA Title II Coordinator, correct?
For San Mateo.
No.
Yes,
I'm not disputing that, madam. Do you want to ask me how many times I've asked for the ADA Title II Coordinator here in San Francisco from the Department of Public Health and have not gotten that?
Well, so I'm going to look up something because my understanding is that San Francisco has an entire ADA office within the mayor's office.
Oh, you mean the Mayor's Office of Disability in 2001 when I went with everything told me I was wrong, and when I went to the back to them with the signed confession, they told me the case was closed?
Oh, yes, Mayor's Office on Disability.
Oh, yes.
So you tried them.
Oh, you mean the SHIELD for the city and county of San Francisco for the risk management team. That's not really what happened. You're disabled. We know more than you.
Okay. So the next level up would be the DOJ, the Department of Justice. Have you contacted the Department of Justice?
When I contacted the Department of Justice in 2001 about, you know, my false arrest and denial of emergency services, they told me I was wrong.
Well, so the DOJ regulates all of the ADA laws. So let me see. And I know that they have an office there in San Francisco. There we are. State of California, Department of Justice, San Francisco. Office location. Let me see. Sacramento.
What does programmatic access mean to you? I want to know from an ADA coordinator's point of view. Title II.
Programmatic access, from my point of view, is when somebody is physically unable to receive services within a facility, a particular building.
So in
And
other words, when I enter 101 Grove, I can enter the building, but I'm being denied the services.
Well, so that's where, you know, I can't speak to the specifics of why you're being denied the services.
But under
From a
programmatic access
standpoint, it would be that if they're unable to provide the services at that facility, there has to be another way that you can receive services.
Instead of just being willy-nilly taken out by the sheriff and denied the services. In other words, what you're saying,
I can't speak to that,
what you're saying, what you're saying is what I'm saying. I'm entitled to these services, and if you don't want to be videotaped because, let's say, you know, you have a thing about your own privacy, well, send out a robot or a drone, but don't deny me the services.
So why are you videotaping?
Because I've already proven that they've screwed me in the past, and I don't trust them, and I'm the one with the adjustment disorder.
You know.
Yeah.
Well, programmatic access may or may not allow videotaping. So that would be something that has to be...
As far as I know, from what I've read about programmatic access, it requires something that is not that wouldn't produce an unreasonable strain on the other side for the accommodation. Now, to not allow videotaping would mean that there's no such thing as telemedicine, that they'll never be working on, you know...
No, there's telemedicine.
Thank
Absolutely.
you. So if there's telemedicine and that's allowed, you know, why would my videotaping of my own health care, and I'm not videotaping anybody else's, for my own safety, because they've already screwed me and I've already proven it, and that's part of my disorder.
But telemedicine would be video conferencing between a medical provider and yourself.
Well, that's exactly what I'm videotaping.
Then it's a different service delivery system than what you videotaping is. It would be different, and it would have to be set up with a healthcare provider ahead of time. That's what makes it a reasonable accommodation for programmatic access. Is you
Okay. Well, can I tell you
what you need.
Can I tell you that after 3 years of videotaping in 2015, they decided they were going to let me see a doctor and that I could videotape. I started seeing the doctor. I started videotaping. I started everything. And then the doctor came back with barriers saying that he didn't want me to, you know, continue to videotape. He changed the protocol, even though I was allowed all this.
Yeah, videotaping and recording isn't necessarily allowed.
Isn't necessarily does not mean that it's not legal or illegal.
It has to be agreed upon.
Well, we had agreed upon it.
And it has to relate to the services that you would be providing.
We had agreed upon it. I was receiving the services, and all of a sudden they changed the protocol.
Okay. I'm sorry, I don't know all the details of that. But you're absolutely right in that it is the Office of the Attorney General that you want to contact. Have you been to their 455 Golden Gate Avenue office, Suite 11,000?
So you're telling me, at this point, that nobody enforces ADA law, you know, in San Francisco or San Mateo. If somebody decides to break it, I can only go to the DOJ or the Attorney General. But will they be able to come out and arrest the people? Who enforces the law?
The Department of Justice when it comes to the ADA.
And they arrest.
They're the enforcing agency.
And they arrest.
I don't know if they arrest, but they certainly do provide citations.
Well, my question is, since I was illegally denied all these services by a bogus restraining order, you know, who was supposed to be there for me?
Right. Well, so a lot of medical providers also have patient advocates. So, and again, I would assume that the San Francisco General has that. I can certainly look that up, but there are programs where...
I'm sorry, but when I went to San Francisco General 3 times in emergency, I was denied emergency services in 2014, you know, and everything else because they told me I couldn't videotape. And if naturally they had the sheriff providing security who wasn't there to enforce my rights.
So if you want to file a complaint with the DOJ, they would be able to help and investigate that with you if they found that there is reason that for some reason...
I already have a signed confession from the City and County of San Francisco saying they broke Impala law but not providing a medical screening examination back in 2001. It was signed in 2007. In 2014, 13 years later, they're still not providing medical screening examinations, which is the only way they can say that I wasn't an emergency, but yet they walked me out and denied me the services. When I turned them in to licensing and certification and all the correct places, licensing and certification told me they couldn't substantiate it, even though I provided them with a video of it. They told me they couldn't look at my video. Everything is so rigged to high hell, I cannot begin to tell you.
Have you filed a grievance with the city and county of San Francisco?
Would you like to see the many grievances I've filed with them? And grievances don't get you anywhere because you've got to take them to court. As a matter of fact, when they illegally arrested me on 08/28 for videotaping, per their policy that was incorrect, we went all the way to court because you know what? They were going to be supreme dicks. Not only did they charge me with videotaping, trespassing, they upped it to public nuisance. We went to court. The public defender in court proved that, I had not broken any law by videotaping the receipt of my own health care, that they had illegally arrested me because there was no valid reason for arresting me. There was no reason whatsoever, and that was what was proven in court. I turned to the judge and I said, well, now that I've proven that I'm correct, will you force the Department of Public Health to provide the services I'm seeking, and will you replace the sheriff's office as security because they're violating rights? Do you think I had due process? Do you think the judge said, oh yes, you were illegally arrested, they broke the law, now let's ensure that your rights are complied with?
And that did not happen.
Naturally.
So I have a phone number here for the ADA compliance officer
ADA
for the city and county of San Francisco.
Compliance officer, through which through whom?
The entire city and county of San Francisco. I have no jurisdiction with
No. But when you say ADA compliance officer, is that for the city and county of San Francisco, or is that
Correct.
through the Office of Attorney General?
No, this is for the city and county of San Francisco.
So I've already asked repeatedly, who is their ADA, and I want to meet with that person, videotape, ask the specific questions, and have been constantly denied.
And you're trying to reach services through the public health?
Of course. I mean, isn't the Department of Public Health the last resort?
Well, let's see.
Yeah.
So in our county, it wouldn't be the Department of Public Health. It would be our medical center. And so in San Francisco, let me look up there.
Now, have you ever heard of anything so outrageous in your entire life as an ADA coordinator? I mean, the fact that I can't even speak to the San Francisco... Give me the ADA coordinators and their title here in San Francisco so that I can follow up with that and of course, prove that that too is a dead-end referral.
I'm looking at the general hospital right now here.
No, I can tell you, if I go to General Hospital and take my video camera to record under programmatic access because they've broken the law against me, they won't allow that and they'll have me walked out. Where can I receive my services? Who can go in with me and tell these people, excuse me, but under ADA he's allowed and he's not breaking any law, so could you please provide the services?
Well, so again, videotaping them without their consent is not programmatic access.
Okay. Can you explain to me what programmatic access is to somebody who has an adjustment disorder and who's already proven that they've broken the law and doesn't feel safe without a camera? What would be my programmatic access at that point?
And if there was, if it was worked out where you asked for an accommodation,
which I have.
Don't just go in necessarily with the camera because that's gonna, that's not.
I've asked for the accommodation consistently, been denied.
I can't get into the details.
Well, I can. I've got over 1,000 videos on YouTube showing specifically how it's all rigged, how nobody's accountable, how you can have these rights as an ADA person, but nobody enforces them.
Let's see. San Francisco Commission on Disabilities. We have a Commission on Disabilities here in the county that would be definitely a good resource that we only can work here in our county. So for you, let me look in San Francisco.
Well, first of all, I want to know who the ADA compliance officer is so that I can, put that little puppy to rest when I call them and I'm denied.
So they're not giving a specific name. They're just saying ADA compliance officer, Mayor's Office on Disability.
Aha! Where I've already been. Where I've already asked for programmatic access when I was denied through the sheriff's office back in 2012, and I've got the video.
Well, that was 4 years ago. It's worth trying again, I would
Oh,
expect.
excuse me. Their programmatic officer, who was the expert, told me I was wrong, that I would never receive care, asking for it under programmatic access. I did receive the care. They've never explained the fact that their expert was wrong.
Well, so just from my experience, it would be that you would be working with the ADA coordinator at the hospital because you're trying to seek medical treatment. So let me look at the hospital. Let's see. Oh, I'm looking at their website and I'm not really finding too much. Director of faculty. Let me look here. That.
Yes, the compliance officer is the MOD. The MOD that in 2001 I went to them with my complaint. They told me I was wrong. I went back with the signed confession. They told me the case was closed. It's wonderful to send me to a risk management shield for the city, but people who don't provide services.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I know exactly. I've been going through this for 20 years, madam.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm the one with the adjustment disorder, the one who cannot adjust to disorder. I have a signed confession sitting next to an arrest record, never having been arrested for a crime they committed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And nobody's coming clean.
I'm just trying to figure out how it is that I can help you.
No. Please, I'm not trying to be abrasive. I'm just raising my voice because can you imagine? And I have this, urinary tract infection I've had and I can't get rid of, and I can't go and seek help because when I go to, the Department of Public Health to follow up and everything, they just escort me out by the sheriff because, the sheriff is there to protect the staff. And if the staff feels that they're, threatened or anything because I'm videotaping instead of providing services, they just call the sheriff and they deny me my rights consistently. Because the sheriff is not there to enforce medical law. If you call the San Francisco Police Department through the emergency 553-0123, and I've got those videos, it's all rigged to high hell because the Department of Emergency Management knows about the $12 million MOU with the sheriff to provide security, and what they do is they hook you up with the sheriff and don't hook you up with the police department.
Have you contacted this agency, Healthy San Francisco?
Healthy San Francisco is run through the Department of Public Health, and they have nothing.
I'm looking right at their website right now.
Oh yes, and they have nothing to do with this kind of stuff. Yes, I have my records from having gone back to them, and they told me, and I have the record specifically, that since I have Medicare Part A, they cannot help me. Oh, trust me, I have overturned every rock, Alicia, to show and to prove that they're not there in medicine to help the patient. Every rock I have overturned.
Yeah.
And I have been illegally arrested. In the meantime, I have now been arrested 4 different times seeking my health care through the Department of Public Health. This last false arrest was proven as a false arrest, and they're still denying me services.
Okay.
It's actually not, but I understand what you're saying.
No, I understand. I'm just thinking here.
Isn't that amazing, Alicia? And with everything I have, you would think that they would just say, Mr. Garza, let's just give you your services. You want to videotape? No, there's no harm or foul. We're going to provide you with service. What is the big problem with me videotaping the receipt of my health care?
Well, like I said, it's not exactly a common practice to videotape people that you're receiving services from unless it's agreed to ahead of time. That has to be agreed to. Just like you politely asked me if I would be, recorded, if this conversation was recorded, and I gave you that consent. Right? That's different. Now I understand.
Well, no. That's different because I've asked, but under programmatic access, and I've repeatedly stated it under programmatic access with a signed confession in my hand from the other side that's deliberately screwed me and never come clean, and I, with an adjustment disorder, can no longer trust them. I've correctly asked for programmatic access, and I had it at a time, and then they decided to change the protocol without telling me why or anything else, and throwing a policy at me that said that it wasn't allowed under HIPAA, And when I challenged the officer, because I know HIPAA law, and I pulled it out, I was illegally arrested. And when I went to court and asked for due process and equal protection,
Yeah.
I received none of that.
Well, sir, all I can say is that I would either recommend you contact the Office of the Attorney General in San Francisco and say that, look, you have a complaint, an ADA complaint you want to file about not being able to receive services, that nobody is able to accommodate your specific needs, right? I mean, if your need is to videotape everything, then, and nobody's following through with that, then
Well,
you have a legitimate complaint.
let's back up, Alicia. If I have an adjustment disorder and I can't adjust to disorder, and I've consistently told the truth, and they screwed me in the past, and I have a signed confession, and they've never come clean, is it unreasonable for me, the person with an adjustment disorder, not to seek to protect myself by videotaping since they've lied every time in the past? Given my disorder.
Well, forgive me, I'm not familiar with your disorder. So I'm not familiar with the typical accommodations that would be made for that, for programmatic access.
Well, let's back up. Had a person with, who couldn't speak, had the law violated against them, wouldn't they feel that they would have to videotape so that they could feel confident that everything was being done correctly?
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. There's many different ways that programmatic access could be
Well,
reached.
not necessarily, but it wouldn't be an unreasonable request.
It might. Each case is reviewed individually.
It might be unreasonable.
I don't have all the details in front of me. I don't know all the details of the. I mean, I hear what you're saying, and that's one side of it. But I'm not familiar enough with your specific disorder to understand what.
Well, so what you're saying is that basically, if I didn't have this disorder and they had screwed me in the past and I had the proof of it, that I, as a person, just a normal person, wouldn't want to seek to make sure that everything I say and they say is true and videotape it. I mean, in other words, even without a disorder, wouldn't any ordinary person, after being harmed and damaged, and has the proof of it, by having now an arrest record, never having been arrested, sitting next to a signed confession for a crime that they committed, wouldn't any normal person under those circumstances wish, to...
I would say that my experience in law is that you want documentation.
Right, and, I've got the documentation.
Videotaping is not necessarily documentation.
I have got documentation from 2007 to 2012 consistently asking for services and being denied. That documentation didn't get me any services. It wasn't until I started videotaping, that I started receiving services last year. Then all of a sudden, halfway through the services, once again, I started to be denied.
And I have no knowledge of what the denial was based on, etc.
It was based on their policy that had me illegally arrested on 08/28, that, the court proved that there was no reason for the arrest, but nobody challenged the policies, made them change that incorrect policy, nor did the court say, your due process and, equal protection, now that you've come here seeking services through the Department of Public Health and they falsely arrested you, they must now provide the services. Oh, no. Just half the equation. You can spend 4 days in jail because they falsely arrested you, but we can't make them give you the services that it's legally required.
So the Mayor's Office on Disability would absolutely want to be aware of that.
Oh, they are aware of that. I went with the Mayor's Office of Disability on 11/27/12 after the bogus restraining order, and I asked for programmatic access to see them, and their expert told me I was wrong. No, the Mayor's Office is a shield for the city for their risk management policies.
And then the next level up from that would be the DOJ, Department of Justice.
Okay, so in the meantime, if you're a disabled person in San Francisco, there's no one who enforces the law.
Well,
Because you have to go to the DOJ, you've got to go to the Office of Attorney General, and if you're deadly sick or anything else, You've got to fight that battle in addition. Because no one, you can't call the police department or anybody else to come out and enforce your ADA rights to access and accommodation, apparently.
Again, sir, I would think that the San Francisco General would have a patient advocate program.
I've been there. They don't allow me in to videotape me giving my complaints. Sorry. I've got those videos too. Madam, I've overturned every rock. And no one is accountable. And no one is humane. And no one will answer my questions. And I'm the one who's been arrested 4 times seeking my medical care. Should I just go die somewhere? Because apparently even the Department of Public Health can deny me my medical care and get away with it, and nobody will look into it unless I go to the Attorney General or I go somewhere else. I mean, because no one enforces ADA law.
Well, I'm thinking that you can't be denied medical services.
Would you like to see the videos of where I was? I have them.
I don't need to see the video.
Oh, so you believe me or you still doubt me?
Sir, I didn't say anything like that.
Well, no, I agree with you. I shouldn't be denied, but I have been. So what can we do now from an ADA point, other than having to go to the Attorney General or anybody else, to get the law enforced? I mean, if a person who's sick and has ADA, and they need something major, within 24 hours, they've got to go to the Attorney General. They've got to go to all these places to get their rights enforced. They'll be dead.
I would think they'd be at the hospital, not necessarily looking.
I'm sorry, when I went to the hospital, I was escorted out by the sheriff. Those people would probably be escorted out too. So, I mean, it's a presumptuous supposition.
Let me see.
And please, thank you for your help. I'm not trying to be abrasive.